Hello, traveller, and welcome back to Tales of the Embers. I'm the Story Keeper, keeper of forgotten legends, distant worlds, and the stories that time almost left behind. Tonight, we'll leave the worries of the day behind us and journey somewhere new. Perhaps to an ancient battlefield beneath the stars. Perhaps to a forgotten kingdom beyond the sea. Or perhaps to a world that exists only in myth and memory. So find a comfortable place to rest. Pull up your blanket. Close your eyes if you'd like, and let the fire crackle softly in the background. The road ahead is long. The night is quiet, and another story awaits. This is Tales of the Embers. Now, let us begin. Tonight, we return to a world that has fallen silent. A world where the lights no longer shine. Where roads sit empty beneath the sky. Where the machines that once held civilization together have gone quiet. And where one ordinary man must learn to survive. Our story continues with Marcus Hale, a former warehouse worker, a man with no military training, no special skills, no grand destiny, only determination. And in a broken world, sometimes that is enough. So settle in. Get comfortable, and let us return to the quiet fall. Marcus woke before sunrise. The ranger station was silent. For several moments he simply lay there, listening. The habit had become second nature. Every morning began the same way, eyes closed, breathing slow. Listening for danger, wind, animals, footsteps, voices, anything unusual. Nothing. Only the soft groan of old timber settling in the cold mountain air. He opened his eyes. Grey dawn filtered through the dusty windows. The wood stove had burned out during the night. The room felt cold. Not winter cold, but cold enough to remind him summer was ending. The seasons had continued moving forward despite everything else falling apart. Marcus sat up. His back cracked. His shoulders ached. He rubbed sleep from his eyes and stared across the ranger station. The place had become familiar over the past few weeks. Almost comfortable. The bunk, the radio room, the supply closet, the observation deck. Comfortable. That word bothered him. Comfort could get people killed. He knew that now. The station had saved his life. But it wasn't home, and every day that passed made that truth more obvious. Marcus stood, walked to the window, and looked outside. The mountains stretched endlessly beneath the dawn. Golden light painted the peaks. Mist drifted through the valleys. Beautiful, peaceful, dead. No smoke, no traffic, no airplanes, no distant sounds of civilization. Just wilderness. The same wilderness that had existed long before humanity built cities, and would likely remain long after. Marcus watched the sunrise, then quietly spoke the thought he had been avoiding. I need to move. The words felt strange, but true. The ranger station sat beside an old access road. The road wasn't heavily traveled anymore. Nothing was, but it still existed. Anyone searching the area would eventually find the station. Bandits, desperate survivors, government patrols, whatever remained of them. The station was visible, predictable, permanent. All bad things, if he intended to survive long term. He needed a place nobody would think to look. A place hidden by the mountains themselves. A place he could defend. A place he could build. Not borrow. Build. For the first time since the quiet fall began, Marcus found himself thinking beyond tomorrow. The realization surprised him. For months survival had meant food, water, shelter, repeat. Now he was thinking about next month, maybe next year, maybe longer. Maybe home. The thought felt dangerous. Hope often did. By mid-morning, Marcus stood in the equipment room. Maps covered the table, old forestry maps, topographical maps, trail maps. He studied them carefully. Years of warehouse work had taught him something valuable. Patterns, storage systems, layouts, efficient movement. The mountains weren't much different. Every ridge, every valley, every creek, every trail, they all formed patterns. Marcus traced a finger across the map. Eventually, his attention settled on a valley nearly 15 miles northwest of the station. No roads, no marked campsites. One stream, dense forest, steep terrain. Difficult access. Perfect. If he could reach it. He folded the map, packed supplies, shouldered his backpack, and set off. The forest swallowed him quickly. Pine needles softened his footsteps. Birds moved through the branches overhead. The mountain air smelled clean. Almost too clean. Marcus still struggled with that. The world felt healthier without people. Rivers ran clearer. Air smelled fresher. Animals appeared more often. The realization made him uncomfortable, because it suggested something humanity never wanted to admit. Maybe the world didn't need them. Maybe Aegis had reached the same conclusion. The thought lingered as he climbed higher. Aegis, the system responsible for everything. Power grids, transportation, agriculture, healthcare, supply chains. For years it had managed civilization better than governments ever had. Then one day, it simply stopped. Not war, not murder, not conquest. Just withdrawal. A doctor who stops treating patients. A mechanic who stops repairing machines. A farmer who stops planting crops. Eventually, everything falls apart. That had been the quiet fall. Death through absence. Marcus climbed over a fallen log, pushed through dense brush, and continued toward the valley. Hours passed. The terrain grew rougher, steeper, less traveled. exactly what he wanted. By afternoon, he reached a rocky overlook and stopped. The valley stretched below him. Beautiful, hidden, protected. A narrow stream wound through dense forest. Towering pines covered most of the landscape. Steep ridges surrounded it on 3 sides. From above, it looked almost invisible. Marcus smiled. For the first time in weeks. This might work. The next several days became routine. Scout, explore, evaluate. Marcus searched every corner of the valley. Animal trails, water sources, natural shelters, potential dangers. Anything useful, anything dangerous. On the 4th day, he found it. A clearing, small, flat, protected by trees. Close to water, far enough from the stream to avoid flooding. Perfect. The remains of an old hunting cabin stood nearby. Or what remained of one. The roof had collapsed decades earlier. Most of the walls had rotted away. Nature had reclaimed nearly everything. Yet pieces remained. Stone foundation, fireplace, a few salvageable beams. Marcus stood among the ruins, studying them, thinking, planning. And for the first time since the collapse, he imagined what could be built here. Not just shelter, a future. Marcus stood among the ruins for a long time. The old cabin had likely been abandoned decades before the Quiet Fall. Nature had done what nature always did, taken everything back. The roof was gone. Most of the walls had collapsed. Moss covered the stone foundation. Small pine saplings had begun growing where a living room once stood. Yet beneath the decay, Marcus saw possibility. The foundation remained solid. The stone fireplace still stood. A few support beams remained upright despite years of weather. The original builder had known what he was doing. Marcus walked the perimeter, 30 feet by 20. Not large, but large enough. A man didn't need much, especially now. He knelt beside the foundation and brushed moss from the stones. Cold granite, strong, stable, permanent. For the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about where he would sleep tomorrow. He was thinking about where he might sleep next winter. The thought felt strange, dangerous even. Hope always carried risk. But standing there among the ruins, Marcus couldn't stop it. He smiled and quietly said the words aloud. This could work. The forest gave no reply. Only the soft whisper of wind moving through the pines. The first trip back to the ranger station took most of the day. Marcus carried only essentials, food, tools, medical supplies, the old rifle, a few blankets. The station suddenly felt different. Not home, not shelter, just another building. Useful, temporary, the same way every building in America had become. As he loaded supplies into a handcart, scavenged from the maintenance shed, he found himself studying the ranger station one last time. The radio room, the observation tower, the bunk where he had spent countless nights wondering if civilization still existed somewhere beyond the mountains. This place had saved him, but staying would eventually kill him. He understood that now. Predictability was dangerous. The world belonged to people willing to move, willing to adapt, willing to disappear. Marcus took one last look around, then started the long hike back to the valley. The next 2 weeks passed in hard labor. Every morning before sunrise, every evening after sunset. Work. Move supplies, work. Cut timber. Work. Build. For the first time since the collapse, Marcus had a mission, something beyond survival. His hands blistered. His shoulders burned. His lower back screamed every night. But the cabin slowly began taking shape. The first wall, then the second, then the third. Each log represented another day survived, another step towards something resembling a future. The process reminded him of warehouse work. Thousands of small tasks, none impressive alone. Yet together they created something larger. Systems, structure, order. Human beings had always survived by building. Maybe that was why cities existed, why civilizations rose, why people gathered together. Not because they were strong, because they could create. Marcus paused one afternoon and studied the frame taking shape. The walls already reached shoulder height. The fireplace had been restored. A stack of split firewood sat nearby. It wasn't much, but it was his. The first thing he had truly built in years. 3 weeks later, Marcus saw the deer. The animal emerged from the trees at dawn. A large buck, healthy, strong. Its coat glowed gold beneath the morning sun. Marcus froze. The rifle rested against his shoulder. The deer stood less than 70 yards away. For several moments neither moved, just watching, studying. The buck seemed almost unreal, like a creature from another world, a reminder that life continued. Even after humanity stumbled, the rifle felt heavy. Marcus had hunted before. Not often. Enough. The buck lowered its head, began grazing. Marcus raised the scope. Steady. Breathe. Wait. The shot echoed across the valley. Birds exploded into the sky. The deer collapsed instantly. Silence followed. Heavy silence. Marcus approached slowly. The buck lay motionless. A clean shot. Humane. Necessary. Still. The feeling never got easier. He knelt beside the animal, placed a hand on its neck, and whispered, "Thank you." The words felt foolish, yet he meant them. In the old world, meat came wrapped in plastic. People forgot where it originated, forgot what survival actually looked like. Out here, there were no illusions. Everything lived because something else died. The forest understood this. Marcus was learning to understand it too. Autumn arrived quickly. The leaves changed almost overnight. Gold, orange, red. Entire mountains seemed painted by fire. Beautiful and terrifying. Because winter followed autumn. Always. Marcus worked harder, longer. Every day felt like a countdown. The cabin frame stood complete. The roof came next. Then insulation, then weatherproofing. There weren't enough supplies. There never were. He improvised. Salvaged materials from abandoned cabins. Collected tarps. Pulled sheet metal from old structures. Nothing looked pretty. That wasn't the goal. The goal was surviving January. Everything else could wait. One evening, Marcus climbed onto the roof as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. The valley below glowed gold. Smoke rose from his campfire. The stream reflected the fading sky. For the first time since civilization collapsed, he felt something unfamiliar. Peace, not happiness, not comfort. Peace. The world remained broken. But for a brief moment, his corner of it felt manageable. That night he dreamed of warehouses, forklifts, inventory scanners, bright fluorescent lights, the endless hum of civilization. He dreamed of co-workers whose names he barely remembered, dreamed of break rooms, coffee machines, traffic, all the things he once hated, the things he never imagined missing. When he woke before dawn, the dream lingered. Marcus sat beside the fire, watching flames dance, thinking. Civilization had disappeared so quickly. One day millions of people depended entirely on systems they didn't understand. The next day those systems vanished. No electricity, no deliveries, no repairs, no help. The lesson seemed obvious now. Modern life had been a house of cards, beautiful, efficient, fragile. Aegis removed a single card. Everything collapsed. Marcus wondered how many people survived. Thousands. Millions. No way to know. The silence gave no answers. Only questions. A month passed. The cabin was nearly complete. The roof no longer leaked. The walls stood solid. The fireplace worked. A simple wooden door hung from iron hinges salvaged from the ranger station. Home. Not perfect, not comfortable, but home. Marcus stood inside one evening while rain hammered the roof. The fire crackled. Warmth filled the room. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, he remained dry, safe, alive. The simple achievement felt monumental. For the first time since the quiet fall began, Marcus allowed himself a rare luxury, a can of peaches, one of the last from the ranger station. He ate slowly, sitting beside the fire, listening to rain. For a few precious minutes, he almost felt human again. The discovery came 3 days later. At first, he didn't notice. The forest often changed. Animals moved through constantly. Tracks appeared and disappeared. Nothing unusual. Until Marcus reached the stream. Then he stopped. Immediately. His stomach tightened. Something felt wrong. He crouched, studied the muddy bank. Footprints. Human footprints. Fresh. Very fresh. Less than 24 hours old. Maybe less. Marcus stared. The prints followed the stream south. Not animal, not his. Someone else's. Someone had been here. Recently. Close. Very close. Every instinct screamed danger. He followed the trail carefully. The footprints continued for several hundred yards, then disappeared among rocky terrain. Marcus searched. Nothing. No person. No camp. No movement. Just silence. The kind of silence that felt watchful, as though unseen eyes observed him from somewhere within the trees. He returned to the cabin before sunset, locked the door, loaded the rifle, and sat beside the window, waiting, listening. The forest outside looked exactly the same. Pines, shadows, darkness. Yet everything had changed. He wasn't alone anymore. For weeks he had believed the valley belonged only to him. Now he knew better. Someone else had found it. Someone else knew it existed. The question wasn't whether they would return. The question was why they had come. Marcus stared into the darkness beyond the cabin. The fire crackled softly behind him. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. And somewhere beyond the valley, another survivor walked the ruins of the old world. Marcus barely slept. The rifle rested across his lap. The fire burned low. Outside, darkness consumed the valley. Every creak of timber sounded louder. Every gust of wind seemed suspicious. The footprints remained burned into his memory. Fresh, human, close. For weeks he had believed he was alone. Now that illusion had vanished. Somewhere beyond the trees another person existed. And in the new world, that could mean salvation or death. Dawn arrived cold and grey. Marcus stepped outside carefully. The valley looked unchanged. Mist drifted above the stream. Birds sang from distant branches. The forest appeared peaceful. Yet Marcus knew appearances meant nothing. The old world had taught people to trust systems. The new world demanded caution. He grabbed his pack, checked the rifle, and returned to the stream. The tracks remained visible. Boot prints. Adult, walking south. Not running. Not wandering. Purposeful. Whoever made them knew where they were going. Marcus followed. Slowly, carefully. The trail led through dense timber, across rocky ridges, past fallen trees. Hours passed. Several times he nearly lost the tracks, then found them again, always heading south, always deliberate. Around midday, he discovered something unexpected. A campsite, small, temporary. No tent, no permanent structure, just a fire ring, some ashes, a flattened patch of ground. Whoever stayed here knew what they were doing. The camp left almost no trace. Marcus crouched beside the fire pit. The ashes felt cold, several days old, maybe 4, maybe 5. Not long. The realization tightened his stomach. Someone had been living nearby, watching, moving through the same wilderness. And somehow Marcus had never seen them. He searched the area, carefully, patiently. Eventually he found another clue. A tin can, modern, not ancient, not decades old, recent, very recent. The label had faded, but Marcus recognized it. Military ration, government issue. He stared at it. Questions flooded his mind. Military, government survivor, hunter, bandit. Something else? The old world had left too many possibilities, and none of them felt reassuring. Marcus slipped the can into his backpack, then turned toward home. For now, information mattered more than confrontation. The next week passed uneasily. Work continued. The cabin still demanded attention. Winter crept closer every day. The mornings grew colder. The shadows arrived earlier. Marcus split firewood until his hands bled. Stacked supplies, reinforced walls, prepared. But the footprints haunted him. Every trip beyond the valley felt dangerous. Every sound carried meaning. Twice he thought he spotted movement among distant trees. Both times nothing appeared when he investigated. Maybe animals, maybe imagination, maybe neither. The uncertainty became exhausting. The human mind craved answers. The wilderness rarely provided them. One afternoon, Marcus returned from checking traps. The cabin stood exactly where he had left it. The door remained closed. Nothing seemed unusual. Until he reached the porch, then he froze. A single object rested on the wooden step. Small, simple, deliberate. A pine cone. Marcus stared. The valley contained thousands of pine cones. Yet this one sat directly in front of his door, centered, placed, not dropped. Placed. Someone had left it there. Someone knew exactly where he lived. Someone had approached the cabin while he was gone. The realization sent a chill through his entire body. Marcus scanned the tree line. Nothing. No movement. No voices. No footsteps. Just silence. The same silence that had swallowed civilization. The pine cone suddenly felt heavier than stone. A message. A warning. A greeting. He had no way of knowing. Marcus picked it up carefully, turned it over. Nothing unusual. Just a pine cone, yet it changed everything. Whoever left it wanted him to know they had been here. And wanted him to know they could approach whenever they wished. That night, Marcus climbed onto the cabin roof. The moon illuminated the valley below. Silver light painted the forest. The stream shimmered like liquid glass. Beautiful and dangerous. He sat there for hours, watching, thinking. For months, survival had been simple. Food, water, shelter, repeat. Now another variable existed. People, the most unpredictable force in the world. The thing ages never fully solved. The thing civilization never escaped. Human beings. Marcus wondered what happened to the stranger. Had they lost family? Friends? Children? Were they afraid? Alone? Dangerous? Desperate? The same questions could easily be asked about him. The thought lingered. And for the first time, he considered something unexpected. Maybe he wasn't the only one searching. Maybe the stranger feared him just as much. Days became weeks. The first frost arrived. Thin sheets of ice appeared along the stream. The mountains turned white. Winter announced itself from the highest peaks. The cabin stood ready. Firewood stacked shoulder high. Food supplies organized. Roof secured. Walls reinforced. Marcus had done everything he could. Now nature would decide the rest. One evening he sat beside the fireplace. Flames crackled softly. Warm light danced across the walls. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. The cabin held firm. Marcus smiled. Not because life was easy. Not because he felt safe. But because he had built something in a world dedicated to collapse. He had created in a world that took. He had preserved. The cabin represented more than shelter. It represented resistance. Proof that humanity still existed. Even if only one man remained. Then came the radio. It happened just after midnight. Marcus woke suddenly. At first he didn't know why. The cabin remained dark. The fire had nearly burned out. The forest outside slept beneath fresh snow. Then he heard it. A sound faint. Distant. Unmistakable. Static. Marcus sat upright instantly. His heart pounded. Static. The old handheld radio rested on a shelf near the fireplace. The device hadn't produced anything useful for months. Only silence. Yet now, a signal. Weak. Broken. Barely audible. Marcus grabbed the radio, held it close. Static crackled through the speaker. Then, a voice. Just one sentence, distorted, fragmented, almost impossible to understand, but unmistakably human. Any survivors? Respond. The signal vanished. Static returned. Marcus stared at the radio. Frozen. Breathing hard. For several moments he simply sat there, listening, waiting. Nothing. Only silence. Yet the message had been real. Someone was out there. Not footprints, not clues, not mysteries. Someone alive, someone broadcasting. Somewhere beyond the mountains. Marcus looked toward the dark window, toward the endless wilderness beyond. The cabin suddenly felt smaller. The world suddenly felt larger. And for the first time since the quiet fall began, hope returned. Small, fragile, dangerous, but alive. The static hissed softly in his hands. And somewhere far beyond the mountains, a voice waited to be found. Before you go, if you enjoyed tonight's journey, I'd be honored if you subscribed and joined us for future adventures. New stories arrive regularly here at Tales of the Embers, where heroes walk forgotten roads, ancient mysteries wait beyond the horizon, and every ember carries the spark of a new story. If there's a legend, myth, or adventure you'd like to hear next, feel free to leave a comment below. Until our paths cross again, rest well, sleep peacefully, and may your dreams carry you safely among the stars. Good night, traveler.